Welcome to Masters of Data, everyone. I'm Adam White. I have with me David Gervin and Chaz. Chaz, you've been on a previous episode or two. I can't remember, but it's good to see you again. Thanks for jumping in today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Awesome. We are talking about. Oh,
Whoa, whoa,
David,
whoa, whoa.
you have something to say?
Sorry, sorry.
Yeah.
Chaz got it's a nice to see you, and you just breezed right by me.
I see
Breezed
you all the time.
right by me. Right by me. Okay, keep
It is
going.
very
Keep going.
nice to see you, David.
Keep
Yeah.
going. No, no, it's cool. It's
Let's
cool.
not get our feelings hurt minute one of the podcast.
It's the best way to start a podcast.
I guess that's true. Just go ahead and clear the air. It's amazing to see you, David.
Thank you.
Today, we are talking about how to start a threat hunting program, and I think it's going to be a fun show. Why don't we just kind of start with the basics? What is threat hunting? Chaz, I'll let you jump in. David, like fill in anything that you have as well.
Yeah, so in fact, since you asked the pointed question, I actually somewhat recently did a podcast with one of our good partners, eCentire, on this very topic. And we're gonna throw them a shout out here and get a little more of this content. But can you see that? We're not gonna have a lot of slides on this podcast, but I
Not
thought just
not
getting level
quite
setting out of the
yet.
gate would be good.
There we go. It came up.
Um, Perfect. So there is sometimes there's kind of a misconception about threat hunting. And really, when you're building a security operations practice, there's two disciplines. One is detection engineering, which is creating alerts and real-time correlation rules um, that will find like the known bad. And that's a very important part of any good SecOps strategy. You have to have your rules and detection library, but not all adversarial behavior can be predicted, right? And so that's when threat hunting comes into play. And that's more of like looking for the unknowns, right? And oftentimes this is framed as coming up with a hypothesis of what the attackers might do based on your infrastructure or your stack. What are your critical assets? How would they likely target you? And then just kind of proactively go and look and see what is out there. And a really kind of simplistic example that I'll use is if you were, let's say you're flying across unknown wilderness and your engine goes out and you have to parachute down and you're stuck in the middle of the jungle. Well, you obviously need food to survive. So you have two options. One is you know what kind of game is there and you're going to set traps up, and you're going to make sure that that matches appropriately whatever animal it is. But if you really have no idea, then, and by the way, that would be like writing a detection rule. Like I know what I'm looking for, I know how to catch whatever it is I'm trying to catch, and so I can set that trap up. But what if I have no idea? In that case, I'm going to go out exploring. I'm going to see like, well, what kind of, animals or food sources exist here. And, you're just going out without a lot of real, solid information to go on, and then ultimately maybe you start tracking something and then you can ultimately come up with a strategy. Like I know where they are, I know where their home turf is and where their, maybe where their cave is. So now I can start to write a detection that's going to get it. And so in that sense, threat hunting, hopefully that example is not too trivial, but it should make sense, right? Because when you're threat hunting, you don't always know what you're looking for, but you are trying to proactively find signs of malicious activity. And I know I'm going a little bit long here, but I will say this is becoming more and more important as adversaries get more and more advanced. And in the last, I think the CrowdStrike threat hunting report that they released, 81%, according to them, of interactive intrusions were malware free, meaning they're living off the land. You don't necessarily even know what indicators to look for in your log stream. And so if that's the case, you really have to be more proactive and looking for, possible signs of compromise, data exfiltration, things like that, or else you're going to be far too right and the damage is going to be done, right? So that's kind of the way I describe threat hunting, and ultimately we'll talk about this a little bit more. I'm going to kill the slide there, but everything that you do from a threat hunting perspective should have a continuous feedback loop, meaning if you have a threat hunter and they find something or their hypothesis proves true, you immediately hand that back over to the detection engineer. And the reality is it might be the same person. It doesn't really matter what hat they were wearing on that day. But you're like, okay, I now see this attack vector and how to identify it. Now I'm going to turn it into a rule. Now I'm going to create a real-time detection so that I can then move on to the next unknown thing. So you're shifting from the unknown, turning it into a known, and you're just rinse and repeating that cycle.
You're muted, Adam. You're muted.
I switched windows and I did that. Yeah, that makes sense. Complete sense, Chaz. David, you and I were talking about this a little bit the other day, like from a threat hunting people perspective, we know it's important. Like, are there particular sizes of an organization where it makes more sense to start it, or like, how do you start it, and then how might you grow it? Like.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we think of bigger organizations with threat hunting programs because they have a actual security team. But I've done it at tiny places too. I think it's more of like, where's your security philosophy at? You're gonna get a lot of people that are like, oh, security is, single sign-on and no zero trust. And okay, we're good. And then there's the paranoids out there like me that know that even with the good tools, there's going to be, breaks into the software supply chain and then backdoors put in and those kind of things. So it's kind of, you want to start looking at this when you have any ability. And so you don't have to start off with this, oh, we need 27 people. We're going to implement this giant red teaming, purple teaming exercise, all those kind of things. You can just take a step back with some executives that actually have an understanding of the business and not just security, and start with what's our risk appetite? Like, what's our holy grail that we have to protect? And then, reversing from that, then you can start to like things that are actually important. Because if you think about it, if you're trying to just spray security everywhere, what do you're following some influencer on LinkedIn that has really bad advice, but you don't know that because most of them are full of crap. Um, so, or are you being
Were you pointing at me?
no, I was pointing at me. I was like saw myself in the thing and I was like, that's you, David, you're full of crap. Um, the difference is like time to value, I think, with threat hunting. You
Yeah.
get really important stuff because it's a super focused threat evaluation if you think of it. You're threat modeling a specific thing that's important to your company, and then you're going to pressure test that thing, and you're going to have some sort of hardening that's going to come back to it. And Chaz hit it on the head. You have to have that loop built in. If you have a blue team and some AppSec guys, or a blue team and a red team, obviously you're going to be working together. But if it's just you and Joe and your CTO, you're still going to have to do things, right? You're going to have to keep that loop in place, but you're actually focused on things that could really hurt the company. And I think that's more important to realize. So it's not about the size of the company, it's about when do we have enough maturity to know that there's some things we really have to focus on, not just hit compliance so sales can make a sale.
Is there a difference in
So
threat hunting? I'm interested in y'all's opinion on this. Is there a difference between threat hunting for things that have happened, like dwell time, items where, oh, like, oh wait, this has already happened, versus, proactive and trying to kind of get ahead of things that haven't happened yet, or you maybe don't know about.
I would say that by the strictest definition, I mean, everybody, this is arguing semantics, right? But if you've already seen adversarial behavior in your environment, then, and you have a mature program with that loop that we discussed, you're no longer threat hunting. You're
Yeah.
just doing detection engineering, which oftentimes it's like we're just trying to keep the lights on. And so we're like, oh, that last breach or that last, true positive, did we ever write a rule to catch that if it occurred again?
Yeah.
You should make sure you do that. But I think like to David's point, um, the friction that used to be there where like we can't really start a threat hunting program unless we're like a large enterprise and we have enough bodies, especially with AI now, because in fact, I'm going to share something else because I was looking at these slides that we did before, and I was like, this has to be updated because AI changes everything, which is often the case. Like every single topic that comes up is like, well, AI is introducing interesting, efficiency gains. But like when you're looking at this, building a strong threat hunting program right out of the gate, it used to be you needed a specialized team comprised of experts. And that is no longer the case because what are they doing? They're, form penetration testers. They know how adversaries work. They understand alert logic and they can write queries. Guess what? Agents can do all of that better than anyone you can hire. I mean, that is the honest truth. And so I was like, I'm just gonna wipe all that out and put AI in there. Because like honestly, if you are not using AI to build your threat hunting program, or if you already have one to make it more efficient, you're not doing it right. There's a really cool tool that's on my list to master, but it's called N8N. I don't know if you guys are using it or have heard of it, but N8N is like an open source automation tool. Like you create a canvas and it's got pre-built hooks for all these APIs, or you can use Python, you can use anything really. But if I had time, I would wire up an entire like automatic, take the threat landscape, the headline, here are the new attack vectors, make that into a digestible report, deliver it to me every day. From that report, you pass it to an LLM that will create like queries in Sumo Logic that will then go look for that to see if we've seen any of that behavior over the last 30 days. And if it finds something, then create a Sumo Logic rule. And you've
Yeah.
basically just closed the loop. And N8N is free and it already knows how to do everything. And when you play with the tool, there's actually a category for cybersecurity, and you look in the catalog, and it's like here's virus total, and here's all of these reputational threat feed tools, and it's basically just begging to be used to automate away half of the stuff that used to be done manually, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, if I were like on the frontline trenches building out a threat program, that's where I would start. I'm like, I'm not doing it manually. I'm going to use AI. I'm going to use N8N, which already has hooks to all the large language models, and then see if I can't programmatically get this thing working. And then, of course, you'll need human in the loop and all of that, of course.
Yeah.
But the point is, like, it's easier than ever. And even like a small team could probably stand up a really cool threat hunting practice or program without like much overhead or expense, which is pretty
Yeah, I was
awesome.
about to say, Chaz, I mean, we always talk about, people, process, technology. Like it feels like exactly what you just laid out there, is it really kind of covers those, but also like that at least just one tool that you mentioned, can really kind of help you do more with less. So like a smaller team with AI, with the N8N and presumably there are other tools out there that would be useful as well, really kind of extends that
Yeah,
ability
right.
of the team.
And especially like a lot of our listeners are Sumo Logic customers, but regardless, you've got some sort of log analytics or SIEM platform likely. Um, that is sitting central to the people, process, and technology that you just mentioned,
Yeah.
right? So um, that honestly is a prerequisite. We probably should have mentioned that at the outset because you need to be able to have a place to hunt. Like where are you hunting if you don't have a
Right.
central data store? But you also need a place to push real-time alerts. And if you don't have a SIM or some sort of mechanism to build your detections, then you're just going to spend all your time hunting. Meanwhile, all of the known bads are just lighting you up. So
Yeah.
Sumo Logic is one of the best, parts of our platform is it's so versatile. It's a massive security data lake. It allows you to threat hunt, but it also allows you to write real-time rules on that same data, and it integrates with threat intelligence and it's unlimited user accounts. Like let everybody have an account and start hunting around and find stuff. Um, but
Yeah.
but yeah, that's like step one, I guess, is make sure you're collecting your telemetry.
Yeah. I guess one thing that comes to mind is, from like pitfalls or just things to know or think about when someone is building a threat hunting program. Are there things that, from either of y'all's experience, like scar tissue that you can help people avoid?
I mean, I've made every mistake there is, so I can give you a list. I think the first thing is just trying to do it because the way someone else told you. Everybody's security program needs to be holistic. You need to be really an expert at threat modeling, not at all this other stuff. You can look up how to write queries, you can look up detection engineering. If you can't think correctly, though, you're not going to win at this, or you need to bring someone in to do it, right?
Mhm.
I think that's a big thing. The other thing was kind of what I was hitting on earlier. Like you need to figure out your risk appetite and go after a core group of targets, like reputational damage or this database is super important. Like when I was at 1Password, obviously it was the vaults, right? So we actually got to the point where we put $1 million bounty on if any of the bug bounty people could get into one of the vaults. So, and that was a part of that program because at least if they did, we pay out $1 million, but we would proactively know how to fix it before, because that was what I threat modeled as our biggest thing would be reputational damage. If any of the big time vaults got breached,
Yeah.
company goes under, right? So I think it's having an understanding of those kind of things and picking in the beginning, like we're gonna go after this, this, and this. This spray and pray security crap where you just buy 50 tools and plug them in everywhere, it just doesn't work because things don't get implemented right? So
Too
that's
much to
my
keep up with.
suggestion.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would just add, I mean, basically the same sentiment, which is make sure that you're prioritizing threats based on severity and potential impact. Um, that it's just too much activity and noise out there to try and boil the ocean. And so if it's not relevant to your business, if it doesn't match like vulnerabilities that you may have or technologies that you currently use, why are you wasting your time? Like, it's so just because it is a time sink, and even with AI helping out, doing a lot of like crafting the queries and understanding the attacks, it is a time sink. So make sure that you're just judicious with your time and don't over rotate on threat hunting and then neglect detection engineering or incident response. It's like you got three balls in the air and you need to make sure they're all up in the air at any given moment.
Yeah.
Because you drop one and it all crumbles. So
Yeah, that brings to mind, kind of the combining threat intelligence and like tactical threat response. Basically like the red team, blue team, how those teams kind of work together. What are y'all's thoughts on, how these different kind of parts of the business, if they are different parts of the business, how they inform or affect one another?
I mean, I was on the NSA red team for a while, and one of the things that was somewhat I guess maybe concerning to me was how often you find, you know, points of vulnerability and ways in, and you write your findings in your report and you pass it off to the system owners or stakeholders, and how long it takes for them to actually get around to implementing it and fixing it. And so I think there needs to be maybe somebody that's orchestrating all of the different pieces and making sure that, hey, we know this is bad. Are we protected? You know, and they're making sure that the engine is working properly, because what good is having a red team or a threat hunter if when they pass it off, the baton gets dropped, right? That's not how you win a race. And I don't know, who is that person, the security lead or CISO or whatever team, I think that David's volunteering, so you give him a call,
Pointing
but
at
you
his
flash your
face.
number,
Yeah.
flash your number on the screen. But
Yeah.
but having somebody that owns it, I guess, would be super important. But yeah, I mean, that's one thought.
Yeah.
To jump off of what Chaz said though is something I've been banging on since I've been in security. Security is a relationship problem. And when you get bigger corporations, you get bigger egos sometimes, not all the times, but a lot of the times. And when red team finds stuff, blue team's butthurt. And when blue team doesn't want to really do purple teaming, they're like keeping secrets and all this kind of stuff. And it's because you want to look good. I mean, everybody wants a promotion, everybody wants to look like a team lead, right? But that's not the way to do it. And unfortunately, like silos kill security across the board. Like they mess all this stuff up.
You're
Uh,
like working against yourself, like whose team are you on?
yeah, exactly. And I've seen that. I've also seen that in pen testing. Where it's like you realize real quick that pen testing sucks as a career sometimes because people aren't hiring you to pen test. They're hiring you for compliance, which is a really bad reason to have people pen test your company. So you do the same thing, you find the same vulnerabilities every year because they didn't fix them because they just got the test for compliance. It's the exact kind of same thing Chaz is talking about with the red and blue team.
Yeah, makes sense. We've talked about this a little
The
bit,
other,
but oh, go ahead.
yeah,
Did you have
no,
something,
no, go
Chad?
ahead. No, go ahead.
I was just on the stakeholder front, we've almost talked about like this, person in the middle between red team and blue team, but from a stakeholder standpoint, like what is a good mechanism of oversight or driver for good threat hunting in an organization?
I mean, the rule that I think every program should be based on is if you can't measure it, it didn't happen or it doesn't exist. Because if you don't have metrics or KPIs or whatever, you don't know if you're getting better or worse. And um, I don't, I'm just, I haven't thought about this particularly recently, but like what would a good metric be for a threat hunting program? Um, how many threat hunts turned into detections, for example?
Mhm.
um, how many how many threat hunts actually turned up true positive indicators of a misconfiguration or adversarial behavior. Whether or not they made it in or not is not necessarily relevant, but like is that time, are you getting your value out of that human time sink that we talked about? So figuring out like how to measure that would be another one. I don't know, David, if you have any other
Yeah.
metrics or ways to measure a good program.
Yeah, I kind of take a weird approach on this. So like I always feel like MTTR and all that kind of stuff can kind of be bullshit. Um, and so whenever I want to do metrics, I think metrics have to tell a story. Um, so if I was going to do a threat hunting setup, this is business risk, right? So not only would I have the CISO buy-in if I wasn't the CISO, I'm the CISO. Or I would get someone from the C-suite that actually has stake in this. And instead of selling it as metrics like, oh, well, we've patched 37 things and written 375 rules. Because that also, you get into AppSec where that stuff is weird, like it's hard to portray it. And then you get into physical security, which is the same thing. Like physical corp security is kind of hard to do those metrics as well. So what I would do is say, target A, we think has and you have to get them to buy in. They have to take the risk, right? They have to sign off on it. Target A, we think if it's exploited, is a $52 million hit to the company. So what do we have to do to reduce that risk by what percentage? And can we allow a $2 million risk to the company without spending $1 million? So I think when we put it into dollars, cents, and risk and reputational damage and work hours type of thing, you can tell a story that maybe the board can understand better than us speaking nerd at each other all day, which is what we like
Yeah.
to do, but it doesn't really translate.
Yeah. There's something I think this kind of hits
Yeah.
at something you mentioned earlier too, which is risk appetite. Like, what are the various shades of risk appetite look like? I mean, why wouldn't everyone have a similar risk appetite? Like, I think I know the answer to the question, but it's just kind of,
God, I mean, it correlates to
We
what your
could,
company does, but it
yeah,
also correlates to like how fast you're moving. Like SaaS companies, I'm not saying this about Sumo, so please don't. We do a lot in security, but SaaS companies are breaking shit and moving fast, baby. Because you
mhm,
got VC money, you're trying to like grow, you're trying to show all this stuff. Half the stuff that comes to market, it's like half baked, right? Their risk appetite is like 10x of what let's say a solid, on the stock market for the last 20 years type of company should be.
yeah,
So it's holistic. You have to have people that speak that language, and you have to have security advisors that can actually kind of help build the understanding to people that speak the language.
yeah. Chaz, what would you say on that front?
yeah, I mean, I think he nailed it. Like, businesses are in business to make money, and security is always a hindrance and it always slows things down. So you have to determine, what's appropriate for the business and how do you balance risk versus innovation, because those are competing, you know, objectives always. That's just the reality.
Yeah,
Um, and so I think as security professionals, we get caught up in like our own world of like, it's not secure, don't do it. Like, well, that's not actually the right answer. It's, is it secure enough to do it reasonably well? And if it is, go forward, because otherwise you'll be out of business because the guy next door cares a little bit less than secure about security than you do, and he just won the business.
right.
Um, so, I mean, it's this is where due diligence comes in, and making sure that you're being responsible with customer data and everything like that. And there's not like any black and white answer. It's just try and do good and do right by the business. So yeah.
Yeah,
I think one other thing though is people are finally understanding you're going to build stuff and break stuff fast and move, at an unsustainable speed in most companies. So I think we're starting to see people architecting things in a way, thinking in the future that at some point there's going to be a breach. Like he said, customer data. It's like, how do we build these databases? How do we build this in a way that if there is a breach, we're protected? Because I think the reality is now everybody gets breached one way or the other. It's just where we're at.
Yeah.
And
like when, not if.
yeah, but if you can't, do some slick living off the land lateral movement over here to like, the gold, because the gold's encrypted and you can't actually get in there, then hey, that breach didn't really matter. Like you fixed it, you figured out what was wrong, you kicked the bad guy out. Now we're rocking and rolling. But so I think it is
Yeah.
playing it risky, but building things the right way,
And
balance.
that's like the DevSecOps approach, right? Which I think we're getting much better at, like
Mhm.
thinking about security during the development process so that we're not like coming back over the top, like, oh, we're making money now. Let's actually think about security with all this extra cash lying around. Like, hopefully you thought about it a little bit during the journey. But yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like rebuilding your foundation after you've built the house kind of
Well, I
thing.
mean, most people don't make their first security hire till sometimes Series B, right? If
Yeah,
you think about that, they've been in business a while before Series B. Like that's kind of a wild take. You have John in IT who just chain smokes and knows how unsecure everything is and is crying behind his keyboard, but they haven't made a CISO hire or a programmatic like plan.
yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds like a shell of a human you just described.
John's bad.
Yeah,
Poor guy.
don't be John. Um, I guess the other end of the spectrum there is, things like SOC 2 and PCI, and I mean some of the things that we've been talking about, like what does your business do? What's important to you? So when you start having, PII and all data that you can be held responsible for, that shifts one, your risk appetite, and two, how you kind of approach a threat program.
Yeah. I mean, I think the reality is cyber insurance is going to dictate a lot of things soon. And like I've been digging through their data for the last few years because it's a gold mine. And you're starting to see like companies coming out that realize that. But I think we're going to start seeing some of the
Unpack
governments.
that a little bit more. What do you mean? Like are you talking about what's important to cyber insurance providers, and then kind of like reverse engineering that back to how to threat hunt?
Yeah. And like we're already seeing that with like Root Evidence, which is a new company. They figured out that only 1% of all CVEs have actually ever been exploited. So why don't you just worry about covering those 1% for now, you know?
Yeah.
Because cyber insurance has such a crazy data, because those are all their data is like how people were breached, who was breached, what CVEs happened, what the bad guys do. And I think we're going to start seeing like better information and better data to help us. We're still gonna have to do the same threat modeling. You're still gonna have to decide what's important to you. But now you look at it and you're like, okay, well, we got to set a scanner up, but instead of scanning for 5,700 CVEs and like just burning through the cloud, maybe we only need to look at 300 of them. Maybe we need to make sure we patch just those, even if we find some others, and we can prioritize things better. I mean, that was always the problem in AppSec for me, right? Is, I can go find you 5,000 phones, but we don't have enough man hours to fix 10 of them. So
Yeah.
which 10 are we going to fix?
Is that a hot take, Chaz, or are you on board with that?
No, I think that's right.
Did you just call me hot, Chaz?
At least your takes are, David.
Yeah. But
The other,
bringing it back to the threat hunting program, like I still think it's kind of like in the air. Like if you can't answer how would an attacker attack us tomorrow, you don't have a threat program. If you have
yeah,
an idea
and
of that, you're making your way through it. Now, depending on your maturity, like do you have someone who's like Chaz, who's just crushing red teaming and building detection engine rules? Who knows? But if you can start answering those questions, you're moving in that direction.
Yeah.
yeah, the other, like to double down on that, here's the thing that's really interesting. We're going to get into a little bit of, what's around the corner because nobody really knows. But my opinion on this entire like global IT infrastructure house of cards that we built is we're lucky that it's even exist, like that it's withstood. I mean, it's held together with bubble gum and shoestrings and a little bit of toothpicks. And, it's like, wow, the only reason it doesn't exist is like the vulnerabilities that we keep forgetting to patch or the misconfigurations we keep letting out the door are just undiscovered. And so it's like, well, I'm safe enough because I can run a little bit faster than the other guy and I'm not a target. Now, all of that changes. And this is the hard reality that we're about to face with AI. It's a little bit fear mongering here, but like all of a sudden, adversaries are operating at a scale never before seen, where you can create an autonomous agent that just like, here's a vulnerability and here's some Bitcoin and go like spin up AWS resources. And when you find a way in, just come back and, send me a text message.
Let me know.
And
Yeah.
like you can create an army of AI agents, if not today, very soon, that are doing this on your behalf. And so they will discover anything, any low-hanging fruit. And so now translate that. So what does that mean for us as defenders? We have to be very good at our proactive shifting left and our threat hunting and what are the new attack vectors. In fact, it's just yesterday I read an article that's probably worth everybody looking up. But Sesame Op used a new backdoor that was actually leveraging the OpenAI API for covert communications. And so it's like
Ooh.
this traffic that was expected to go to OpenAI or ChatGPT was now embedded and being used as command and control. And anybody looking at that would just be like, oh yeah, well that's just going to OpenAI. It can't be that bad. But in fact, like embedded in those agents, or assistants were like commands that were then like used to control their infrastructure. And how would you ever detect that? How do you write a rule for that? Do you even have visibility to that? So you need to be able to like, okay, what's the data being passed here and there? Do I have telemetry? What's, like, I mean, it is going to get very crazy very fast. And so I think conversations like this, threat hunting and detection engineering and all of that, like this is the time to everybody like sit up a little bit straighter and figure out what's about to blindside us, because we don't, honestly, nobody knows where this is going. So sorry
Right.
to go off a little bit in left field, but
No,
I
Oh,
mean
no, it's good.
that was
it's
good
keeping
because
me up at night.
that was good. It got me excited. There's two blogs I wrote that actually coincide with that. What we were talking about with the prompt isolation and prompt injection from the agents. This is another thing with the what are we calling it? MoCop? I don't know. Model control plane. It's another
Right,
MCP.
MCP, yep.
Yeah. It's the model context protocol is what everybody knows is MCP. Model control plane does all the filtering. So we're gonna have to start pulling data off of that because that's talking to a database, all those kind of things. So we have to start looking at
It's
all
like
those.
scraping at that layer you're saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And no one's doing this yet. Like these are some of the little things I've been trying to build at home. And it's like it's a lot. But the other one is um what Chaz is talking about. Like I wrote a little blog about the same thing, and it's the patching problem. Because with polymorphous like attacks and you have these agents that can adjust things, the reality is it might take you 3 or 4 months to patch. So what's even the point if you know they can be looking at your stack the whole time, and as soon as you get a patch, they've already built a new attack vector around what they know you're going to have to patch to, because you're going to have to go back a library or go forward a library, right?
Yeah.
It's not rocket surgery. So we're coming into a place where blue team's going to have to start acting like bad guys, I think. Like we're going to have
Yeah.
to figure out, think like the enemy, really build the smart way and that stuff. I'm excited about it. Like it's terrifying, but I like watching things burn. So I think it's going to be people who have broken brains like me are finally going to be useful. It's outside of jail. It's
Only
good.
someone with a mustache as twistable as yours can get away with words like that, David.
Yeah, right. I don't know how you guys put up with me. I'm very
You need to
grateful.
spin around in your chair like you're Dr. Evil.
Yeah, exactly. Well, this has been a super fun conversation on threat hunting. I mean, to y'all's both of your points. I mean, it's like if you're not already thinking about this, if you're not already doing this, take some of these cues of like how to get started and jump into it, because it's the waters are only getting more turbulent and more difficult to navigate. So hopefully this has been helpful. It's been a fun conversation. Chaz, thanks for joining. David, I love seeing your face as always. And
Thanks, Adam.
yeah, please subscribe and we'll see you on the next episode. Thanks, everyone.